In Nobody, Hutch seems to be an ordinary man that has his old life set behind him, but when two criminals break into his home, it unleashes the path to this criminal Russian syndicate that brings him on the path to his old violent ways. Welcome to Cinema, where we focus on a film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of Nobody in the release of the upcoming Nobody 2. Is it good, is it bad, or is the summer right in the middle? Let me keep this spoiler free, and let's keep this discussion going down in the comments below, but taking it right in a positive. Nobody is this fun and violent film that really exceeds the expectations that you may be going into it for the first time, and tackling what Bob Oddenkirk does within his performance could be some of the top 10 work that he's done thus far. Just going about this ordinary suburban dad expectation, the way they set up this film is leading on to a subversive arc that his character takes that's more violent, and it goes into the cycle of discovering clues to his past along the way, revealing those little bits of humor that are teased here and there throughout when the family ultimately discovers what all is going on. There's certainly subversive expectations with the way it all comes revealing out, and just coming from the criminals breaking into his home, and then leading on to the Russians that are all involved with a circumstance on this bus sequence. The way you're getting all this action, it's fun, it's something that you take all your expectations and throw them out the window, because the way you suspend your disbelief in this film is easy to do, because that's what they set up for you from the get-go, is just having fun, being able to enjoy the violence and things that go about along the way, not being ultra realistic in its setting, but still having a sentiment to its drama, to something where this man is living out day in, day out, going about this ordinary life, where he's sort of estranged from his family, not necessarily connected to them as much anymore. And when you discover things from his past, some interesting revelations to his character come to the forefront, and that's what becomes something that's character-led, even where this is a story that becomes intriguing by its own forefront, not necessarily having a villain that has its complexities, but the basic simplicities of the story can also lead to making it more entertaining, because its focus leads on to the action and all the things that can come out of Hutch Mansell, played by Bob Oddenkirk, and the character that you get from him at the beginning, the arc that he gets along the way, having a great lead-on performance to a cameo of Christopher Lloyd, this other sidekick that leads onto a great final battle, just makes the action all that more entertaining by the end of the film, and the enjoyment you get out of that is something that, despite it not being a complex story to begin with, there is something that could come out from this that, even in the violence, even in the blood, that makes it maybe more enjoyable for some audiences. It's something that wins you over just by the idea of this man being a suburban dad, giving up his violent past, and one little tick throws him back into where his life once was, and taking it into the mixed moments. For those that want something that you don't have to suspend your disbelief, for something that's more grounded and more along the lines of someone that gets punched and some of his energy is drained, this one isn't quite running along the lines of that. There's plot protection here and there that, especially for Bob Oddenkirk, what you're getting for his character as Hutch, it's constantly him moving. He's an older dad and is able to keep moving along the way. It's a flaw to this film, but because it sets it up to be that, it's not necessarily a negative to the front of what you should expect, but making it aware for that, there's something you can still want out of this film. But there's also some aspects along the way that I felt like the pacing could be a little bit quicker. You're not necessarily losing a lot of time. It's not overstaying its welcome by being the duration that it is, but there is certainly something you could get about picking things up, going a bit quicker with its arc, and especially if you've seen the trailer, if you saw it in the movie theaters back in the day like I did, then even from the trailers you would have already known he is thrown on this wild spree, and going into the front, that twist is not necessarily a twist even to set up the film, because they can't hide it and do anything along the ways. And so that's where something like that could be a little bit treated more properly, or have some other surprises where Hutch has a little bit more connection to his family throughout the film. Hutch can build up a little bit more of a background to his characters that we otherwise don't always get to see all of the past performances, past things of his life. You don't see him within the war as an auditor or within the Pentagon. You just see all those things coming about all along the way, where his identity is blocked, certain things are all going about, which of course you see all of that come out within the rage that he takes on against the Russians, but you're still missing a little bit of what we could have seen from his life back then, which takes me into the negatives. There's something about all these background characters that while we get a great villain from Julian, there's something about the confrontation that you first get between them, that Julian and Hutch, normally what makes an action film shine is the first confrontation between the hero and the villain, and the confrontation comes after Hutch is overcoming some minimal obstacles that Julian has set up. And so unfortunately, when you first put them together, it doesn't have this daunting atmosphere. It doesn't have a striking image that you're suddenly super on edge of what is ultimately coming about, because Hutch is ultimately kind of on top of the game already at that moment. And so it kind of minimizes the basic simplicities that otherwise could have been stronger within that impact of a moment. And taking on that to switching gears, talking about some of the background characters, whether it's the family or other random characters you see about along the way, I feel there could be so much more personality, so much more of a role, that while you see the background character study of Hutch and why he is connected to his family, you don't necessarily get as much to the personality or roles of the family that could add in some balance to why you care about them personally, seeing their motivations, seeing how they're connected. And while you understand the protection of them for the purpose of the story, it shoves them out of the picture in an otherwise circumstantial meet that could otherwise lead them to have a bit more to offer for what this film does. And there's also a couple side characters, such as a neighbor and this girl on the bus that he protects, that could show up later on, that it's not a one and done thing. And it's not sacrificial to the whole story as a whole, there's something about the loss of those characters, the disappearance of them being a one and done thing, that could otherwise lead to a potential of a side joke, or certain things having payoffs for seeing them again within the means of the story. Why they could have been a lot more prevalent is something that could have been a lot more consequential for the sacrifices this story made along the way, leading on to a final battle, but not necessarily paying off some of the things they started with from the very beginning, connecting the threads of the story a little bit stronger if they included some of those characters, the family, or even these one and done characters, a little bit stronger along the way. So that's just my personal thoughts on Nobody, which I have to rate a simply 7 out of 10. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of Nobody. Are you excited for Nobody 2? Let me know all your thoughts. Make sure to like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe if you haven't already to join the film culture community, where we talk about the love of cinema as a whole. So that's just all, and make sure to do yourself a favor and go watch a movie.